I am here with my cohorts, my partners in all things political, and my good friends, Nicole Bump, Shana Potvin. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks, Steve. How are you?
I'm well. I'm tired. So I am not in New Hampshire. I am in the suburbs of Kansas City, Missouri, where my wife Sandy is from, and she was able to secure amazing tickets for Sunday night's nationally televised Sunday night football game. The Kansas City Chiefs, the New England Patriots of the 2020s. She loves it when I say that. Are are hosting arguably the best team in football right now, the Detroit Lions. It's a huge game, and we've got amazing seats. The rumor is that Taylor Swift will be at the game,
I was going to ask. That's what interests me about this situation.
right? There we go. So, but the shutdown is having many effects, and one of them is the air traffic controller situation is really messy, and that means that Midway Airport was a dumpster fire, and so we didn't get to bed here till after 2 a.m. Central Time, which would be after 3 a.m. Eastern Time, which is where we woke up yesterday. So that's a problem. So, and I had some work this morning. So we're going on very little sleep, which means better content for the viewers. That's not too good. All right. So anyway, you guys are probably better rested.
A little bit. I'm always tired these days.
Uh, what is making you what is making you tired these days?
I mean, besides working and being a mother to two, almost teenage boys, basically anytime I open my phone, I'm tired. Anytime I open an internet browser, I'm tired.
Pretty tired.
Yeah, there's a lot going on that seems as all right.
The wait, how old are your kids?
12 and almost 14.
So, uh, old enough to have an opinion, but not old enough to drive themselves anywhere.
Yes, that's like correct.
That's right. Shayna, you're a mom.
Yeah, yeah. My son is 14, 15 now, sophomore in high school. He's in the band. There's a game tonight. Very excited to go for the halftime show. And I have a daughter who's going to be 23, and she lives in New York City now. He has flown the coop. So, so yeah,
But the
it's
nest does the nest refill? Like,
I'm very excited that she's coming home this weekend to see this foliage, and she has decided that she should not have a car in New York after several years. So she's going to return the car this weekend, which is great news for us. Not something everybody needs to know, but I'm excited about it.
my girls are 22 and 20. They're both in college. My 22-year-old is going to graduate in December, allegedly,
Hmm.
and not allegedly. She's going to graduate. I don't care if I got to drive to Halifax myself, and then we're not really sure what happens after that. Like, actually, one of the things that's keeping me up is what happens when your kid graduates from college, and everything I hear is that even the stuff that we used to be told were the easy, you got a job before you leave college, software engineer, suddenly those are where the layoffs are happening.
Yeah,
So, like, it's real, like, getting pretty nervous about what happens to your kid, like, when it graduates
it's
from undergrad.
it's
Mhm.
very stressful. She graduated last May, and she got an internship. That was 6 months. That was paid, thankfully, but not a lot. So we were still helping her out. And then from that, she got a permanent job on Broadway. And it's like, great. It's
Congrats.
unbelievable. So um, I think the internship is the key. Finding an internship in a place that you're interested in.
You know what? On a totally different, you know what I realized just happened?
What's that?
So, um, I could be wrong, but I believe there's a technical glitch. I think that when I turned off the Substack Live to deal with my hotel internet issue, I may have started and ended the scheduled event.
I think you maybe did.
So I am going to stop this right now. And I am going to immediately schedule one for like 2 minutes from now that everybody will get an alert. And then we'll come on. And then somebody besides the three of us will have just, otherwise, the three of us, I think, will be talking to each other for the night.
It says there's 20 people on here.
There are? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I am only seeing, and I'm not making this up, I'm only seeing one, and that would be me on the
No.
counter.
I'm seeing there's 20 and some people like I'm getting join alerts and some comments and stuff there.
Well, this is great. Okay. Okay. I'm really sorry, everybody. By the
We're
way,
figuring it out.
if you were wondering if this was live, it totally is live. Psych. So if you guys, either one, if you can see this, I cannot. If you see any questions or comments, snark, whatever, then let it flow. And please, yeah, sorry guys, didn't mean to freak you out there. Oh, that's great. Okay, so as you can see, we are all over the parental spectrum.
Yeah.
My kids talk a lot about politics. They're in Canada, and they're not sure like if they're going to come back.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
And also, we're not sure if Canada wants them anymore because they've actually dramatically cut immigration.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
So as a self-employed person, I've looked into where I might be able to go, and Canada has very limited self-employed people that they will accept. You have to be in one of two really specific industries, neither of which I am. So
Hmm.
that doesn't want me either.
well, the Canadians down here, we all like you. So, and the kids are dual citizens, so maybe we got a loophole. Anyway, let's talk some politics. The three of us in our own circles have been. How long have you guys been engaged in New Hampshire politics?
I think I'm probably the newest. It's probably been 3 or so years.
And you're now the Goffstown chair,
Yes.
and that's relatively recent, right? In that official role.
Yep, I was just elected at this past caucus in March.
Um, I'm biased. Goffstown, class of '92, Goffstown High School. But and my folks are still there, the whole thing. But um, it's not a biased statement. Goffstown has become one of the most important communities in the state politically, I think.
Yeah, it's contentious in Goffstown.
Like, was it last year that the local, like non-local Republicans got quite involved in local Goffstown politics?
Yep, we had a rep from Salem that was funding through his PAC, anti-ads against our town candidates. It wasn't even state candidates. It was like school board candidates and budget committee candidates that they ran ads against, you know, our people and what's supposed to be a nonpartisan race. So that was really disappointing.
Uh, has that continued? Do you still see the kind of tentacles of that in Goffstown now?
I didn't see as much of it in the state level elections. I think he had bigger plans than just Goffstown
Yeah.
at
Mhm.
last November, but it did give the Republican committee ideas, and they started getting their own accounts set up. I believe they have their own PAC now, right, for the Goffstown conservatives or common sense conservatives or whatever they call themselves.
Mhm.
Common sense. Next door to Goffstown, Bedford, Shana, you've been in the game a while, which is amazing for 27 years old. So the right on. So what's your political story?
Oh, well, I grew up in Auburn, was, I don't remember if I was student body something, vice president or something. I don't know. It's always been in my bones, I guess. Graduated in 95 from Manchester Memorial High School, and lived in Manchester for a while after graduating, did some organizing there. for local issues. And then on the Obama campaign, was a neighborhood captain there. Ended up moving to Bedford and showed up at my first Bedford Dems meeting with, let's see, my son is 15, so it was baby Jack was on my hip at my first meeting, and ended up being vice chair for a while, then chair, and now co-chair. I'm on the Hillsborough County Committee as the secretary. I'm Rockingham County Dems ED. I have served over this last year on the steering committee of the Blue Hampshire Task Force, and also a rules committee member. So wear a lot of hats, see a lot of the issues um, from different levels, which makes me have a unique perspective and a real drive to find solutions. So,
And Bedford, we talked about Goffstown becoming one of these most interesting and important communities politically in the state. If anything, Bedford, I think, has developed a reputation statewide
mhm,
as one of maybe the bellwether of where politics are going, particularly suburban politics, which is kind of the thing keeping Democrats remotely in the game right now,
mhm,
nationally and in New Hampshire. We're a pretty high percentage suburban state relative to most states in the country. It's probably the reason why New Hampshire is able to stay blue in the presidential, while some of the other swing states that are bigger and have much more of an urban population, Michigan, Wisconsin, all that, we have more of a suburban profile that probably saved us from what was pretty close presidential vote last fall. Um, and one of the craziest data points in the work that we're all doing that we'll get into here is it is very possible, indeed, I'd say likely, that the city of Berlin up in Coos County, which was used to be the most democratic performing city in New Hampshire for years, may vote more Republican relative to the state than Bedford next year. It'll be the year. I've been kind of
wow.
keeping for 20 years, you can kind of see the slowly it's crossing. And Bedford is almost it's at 2 points more Republican than the state. Used to be like double digits not that long ago.
Mhm.
Berlin used to be like D plus 15. And for the first time since at least World War II, it actually voted more Republican than the state last fall by a fraction of a point. So that it's about to cross. Does it feel like things are moving that fast in Bedford?
It does. I think we have a high turnover of folks moving in here, and they're generally looking for I don't know, you put it in better terms than I do. They're looking for great schools, they're highly educated, they are they're not looking for all the MAGA stuff. There definitely is a component of that here, but I think people that move here are, uh, have a good mindset. They have some democratic values, and so we're able to reach them by, we have a great committee, a really robust committee, all sorts of activities that we do, from book clubs to lunches to pub nights to trivia. We try to engage with folks in many different ways. We do cleanup. We own a part of a road that we clean up on. Food drives, etc. So we're really kind of engaging people at all different levels to get them involved.
Nicole,
And we have some great candidates.
it's right next door. What's the profile of the Goffstown activists or even in the community? Do you feel change happening in the time you've been there? What's that look like?
Um, like I said, it feels very contentious. Like you know that there's a fight to be fought because both sides are working really hard to get people's attention, get people registered to vote, all those things. I was getting some ideas with Sheena's list of activities she did right there because we're trying to start up same things. We just did at our meeting on Wednesday, we had a stop the bleed training. We have also just recently done a food drive, which was a huge success, and it was a great way for us to sort of get ourselves out there a little bit. So we are actively working on getting sort of a new profile of activist involved a little bit. People that it's hard, right? When you're working, you got kids, all these things going on in life. So trying to get some of these younger people involved by doing things that they're interested in, not just a meeting about politics. And I am seeing more people get interested that way. So I think it's slowly but steadily working.
So, um, how the heck did the three of us end up? I'm trying to figure it out. It feels like there was a fair amount of serendipity, which is great, right? I mean, it's the organicness of it. I think is part of what I find most delightful about it. How the heck did the three of us start working together?
Well, I know at least from my perspective, I was talking to you last year during the election season because I wanted some input on messaging that I was creating some postcards for candidates and was trying to come up with some messaging ideas. And you threw something out like, everyone's talking about the cost of eggs, but unless you're electing a chicken, like we're not going to be able to, our state reps can't really impact the cost of eggs. And I was kind of like, that's brilliant. And I made a postcard with a chicken, like, unless you're electing, this lady, we can't really do much. And it was funny, like she was saying, my clucking taxes are through the roost. And I laughed so much making this postcard. But I think that was sort of where we we started working together more. Yeah. And we actually mailed that postcard. We didn't win, but we had a good time with our postcard.
There
It
were
was a
much
great
bigger.
postcard.
There were for both of your communities. There were much bigger macro factors
Hmm.
that I felt so bad from not just like a political operative kind of perspective, but it was quite personal. Because knowing and being friends with many of the candidates running in both of your communities, um, having a lot of friends in the activist community, and of course, even in Goffstown, even a familial element to it. Um, and then afterwards, reviewing all the numbers and realizing that both Goffstown and Bedford had actually the candidates had in many cases overperformed relative to the modeling. So like you guys were doing your job. The candidates were doing their job. And both communities have continued to move in a bluer direction. They're getting purpler and purpler. Goffstown's a little redder at this point than Bedford, but both are moving rapidly towards and are squarely in the highly competitive zone. So important for 26. Um, so the mojo was moving your way. Your
Yep.
committees and candidates did all the right stuff, and yet the results, particularly down ballot, were disappointing. And the talk to the candidates after, and they a lot of times they felt like, "What did I do wrong?" And it kills me because I'm like, "You didn't do anything wrong." It was like watching that scene in Goodwill Hunting, with Matt Damon and Robin Williams characters, and it's like there's this moment where it's just like, "No, man, you got to keep doing what you're doing. We just need to make sure the macro stuff is going in the right direction. And you're going to be really pleased at how much better things are going to get sooner than you might think." Now I feel like Robin Williams. But like in Gofftown in particular, I still talk to people about my clucking taxes are through the roost. Because by the way, that's what people are saying. If chickens were property owners, that's what they would still be saying.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good one.
There, that's suspend disbelief. I feel anyway. Um, that is not an analytical statement. Now, Shana, what's your take? How the heck did we all end up working together?
I don't know, Steve. I've been talking to you for decades. I feel like we've been talking for a long time, and I feel like finally we were just like, what you're doing with your analytics. The whole theory of what we're doing right now was I thought your analytics would match up with the insights we could get um, of the values of each district. And then I don't know how far we're going to get into our project, but they did. And we had an aha moment, like, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, where we finally got all the data together and it was visually perfect. Um, so I'm glad that we put it all together because moving forward now we have a plan of how to harness that.
Well, talk about that a little bit. That aha moment where I remember one such moment where you're looking at for me, it was a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
a giant spreadsheet, and it had a color coding element to it. And almost like a 5,000 piece puzzle that it takes a while to figure out, oh, it's a covered bridge. And and you have to look, and there's a point where you're able to step back from it and you're like, I think I see what this is. And it was this alignment of values with the partisan activity, the voting behavior, um, the kind of the proportion of types of voters, and what that could mean for putting that into a visual representation, like this sort of mashing together of the elements. Um, there was uh, it's funny, it's an analytical process, but the final product can't look like a spreadsheet or it would have no chance of being successful, right?
Right. Exactly. So it is more about, so we the team of the three of us have created a platform to deliver messaging that is tailored to each district, each town, really, including wards, because some wards have different values than others. Um, and in a nutshell, we're creating emotionally resonant messaging uh, for each town at the town level. And the idea behind it is we're creating a unified message framework. But the key to this, as opposed to just creating messages and paying for them to go out on it, like paying for a digital ad or paying for a postcard, we have put it into a format where local leaders, volunteers, activists, um, who are normally left to make this stuff up by themselves in their own silos, uh, we are giving them this ready-made messaging and creating a network of trusted messengers to be able to get it out um, to their circles, which then it is designed to appeal not just to us, but to the general population of that area. And in that, we're starting to define the debate. We're starting to put accountability out there on votes that are bad for us. We're speaking in the moral frame that is most appealing to the audience and the most emotionally resonant. And we're really using those emotional drivers to set up a situation in which people will start to all sing out of the same songbook, all provide a magnetism to our messaging that hasn't been there before.
So, Nicole, you have a gift of being able to take a lot of what Shana just described and put it into a visualization that, which is of course how so many people take in information, right? I mean, it's not. I am not that. I do not have that gift, and thus it ends up with these very wordy graphics that are like, click here for a nosebleed level of data, and they're like, that's great. And then seven people are amazed, and everybody else is like, I wonder what it said. You have the gift on the other end of that spectrum for sure. How do you like when you see this collection of information? Like, how does your brain work to turn that into something that actually normal people will consume?
Well, I think part of it is that I do work like this professionally. So I have a lot of experience writing for social media, right? Some longer form stuff as well for, blogs and whatnot. But a lot of what we're producing is trying to distill these messages down to easily shareable, easily digestible pieces of information, which we have seen the Republicans are really good at doing. So we are trying to also be good at doing that. So I start by taking the ideas and distilling them down into something that's appropriate for social media. And even still, it's sometimes hard to get it as short as it really should be. But it's also about, excuse me, sentence length, using simple words, having a low reading level. So I took a health literacy
Yeah.
class in the master's program, and you think with health information that you're dealing with doctors, you're dealing with, people that have good, high levels of education. But something the professor said to me was everybody, regardless, appreciates plain language. And so that's something that I always try to remember when I'm writing is how can I simplify this? What can I cut? Like what's superfluous to getting the point across? Can I write in shorter sentences? Can I add more spaces between paragraphs so it's easier to skim? So that's the kind of stuff that goes for me into taking a piece of, a paragraph of information, turning it into something that's a little more digestible for social media. And we may be getting into it a little bit, but then using some of the tools we have to help instill or infuse the values of the audiences that we're trying to reach into those messages. So that's as far as the copy goes. And then creating something complementary from a graphic perspective. It can be challenging because not everyone is like a home run, like the clucking taxes through the roof. But yeah, trying to keep the graphics simple, bold, eye catching, not too much verbiage on them. Yeah.
It's interesting when I started college, I went to Syracuse. When I went there to be a sportscaster. And within a year and a half, I realized sports was the hobby, policy and politics was the vocation. I had it the wrong way, but I stayed in the communications program, and then doubled up a major that was more appropriate for the policy side because I loved it. I loved the people that were in it. They're still friends today, but also the skill set. And one of the things with writing for the ear, which is different, it generally it's different in a literal sense from what you just described, but it rhymes a lot with it. Like one of the things they would tell us when I'd have to do a 3-minute sportscast for the local public radio station was there really shouldn't be any commas in your sentences your script that you're writing to deliver to a live radio audience. It should be 2 sentences,
Mm.
right? The comma is the way to fuse the sentences. And they're like, no, man, you're not getting it. And and it seems like there's a lot in common with the way you just described the written word in social media.
Yeah, how can you simplify it? How can you make it easier to consume without thinking too much? Because people are busy, they're scrolling. You got to catch their attention and get your point across really fast and simply. Um, like if if there are commas, if you're listing things out, I automatically turn that into a list, right? So now you've got boom, boom, boom in a vertical line instead of your list of commas. It's just easier to consume quickly, and yeah, I think that's a good tip to not use the commas too much.
Mhm.
I've totally abandoned that on my Substack. The comma
That's
ratio is
different
way too
now.
much.
That's a very different writing type than social media.
I guess that's true. That's true. Uh, so let's dig in a little more. And I think Shanna, you were going down this road when maybe in a relatively high level way. Um, what kind of information are we fusing together in creating this process that you laid out a moment ago of taking the most important issues to the voters that are deciding who's winning and losing elections these days in emotionally resonant ways in the places where they're actually going to consume this stuff?
Mhm.
Uh, where are we grabbing this information?
About the values?
Yeah, or the values. I mean, that some of the data part some of it is stuff I've been working on for years in terms of
Yeah,
the blocking and tackling of the precincts or the towns themselves, and
right.
that's clearly fused into it. But um, the values, they're not just coming out of the sky, right? I mean, they're
No, they're yeah, they're not coming out of the sky. I mean, the general so my degree is in psychology, poli sci, and this has always fascinated me, the psychology of the electorate and how to speak to people so that they hear you. So the general problem, the theory of change here is that we are speaking as activists in the Democratic Party or as progressives, we are speaking about issues in our own moral language, which in general is about caring and fairness and equality. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is who we are. We're Democrats. We care about more things. We have more empathy. um, but voters, especially the voters we need to bring on board now, are deciding things based on their own values, not ours. So without this emotional connection, we tend to just facts, facts, facts. Um, Facts don't really convey any emotion, and that's not going to move people. Voting is emotional, not rational. It's driven by your identity, by your worldview, by your moral instinct. And so this is all part of, it's called moral foundation theory. So the theory goes, in order to reach more, the other sections of people that you're trying to reach, you need to morally reframe your argument in the values that they care about. So we purchased access to a database that had modeled out the electorate based on 17 different values. They've put them into 8 personality segments that contain some variations of those and some other things like conspiratorial disposition, racial mistrust. There are so many schools on this platform. Um, in general, we are using that information we brought that information in, tied them up with the PVIs for each district, and then we're able to say, okay, when we're messaging to this chunk of districts, because there are similarities. So we've split them into buckets and we say, okay, these buckets are going to get this type of messaging using these values. These buckets are going to get this type. Then we use Steve's extensive knowledge of every district in the state to really hone it even a little bit more. And then we're asking folks that we onboard, we're asking folks to give us even more information. So if you know that legislator X did this, it's not about a vote, so maybe it's not in our research, but legislator X did this ridiculous thing and we should form a message on it to go out. So we're doing that kind of thing. In summary, we're not changing what we believe at all. That's not what's happening. We're changing how we communicate it. We're speaking in moral values that other people recognize as valid, and that builds emotional trust, cross-cutting support. We're meeting people where they're at, and we're doing it with trusted messengers. So you, Joe Schmo, in your town, sign on, come to our onboarding. We give you access to your galleries, and every week we update the galleries. Every time a vote happens that has a roll call, we're going to do an accountability post on that issue. We do have some accountability posts in there right now. We'll be doing a series of just like values-based posts that will appeal to towns. And then people need to just share it. And then we have found, Steve, you've received so many anecdotal um, pieces of feedback in the last few weeks. I don't know if you have any in front of you that you can share, but
Yeah, one of the most fulfilling. This is quantifiable over time,
mhm.
but and I am the first person to acknowledge in my own kind of quant background, the plural of anecdote is not data. I want to be clear, but Early on, you do get anecdotes, which what I would describe as qualitative information that you see if it matches or it's not matching your assumptions you made on the quantitative work. And so far, it seems like it's matching up. So, like, for example, there was a story recently of somebody living in a red, or rather, somebody who had been living in a red leaning community and was very familiar with that, now lives in a more politically neutral environment, and had posted some of the collateral that Nicole, that you had designed, and put it up. And she was a little uncomfortable at the beginning because some of the language did not match the way that she speaks with her other kind of deep blue Democratic activist friends, which that's great because those aren't the folks that are not voting for Democrats right now, that are not being persuaded by Democrats right now. So instead, she was getting likes and positive comments from her non politically aligned and even Republican Facebook friends. And what I had kind of told her was, I talked to her after, is I'd rather you get, 10 likes, most of them from folks that are new to the game and are not hardcore Dem friends, than 30 likes from a bunch of Dem friends that you like. Now, what we want eventually is for folks to understand the big picture game, and she's getting the 30 plus the 10. And I think that's what will happen over time. But she was greatly encouraged by that because to her it was an early example of I'm breaking through with people that I just have not been able to break through. And knowing her, I know it wasn't a lack of trying, it wasn't a lack of earnestness, it wasn't a lack of knowledge, spreadsheet level knowledge of the issues. That was, and that there's plenty of research that shows that among the low engagement voters that are not that 25 to 30% of the country that are hardcore Dem base. Their values are very different. Their priorities on issues are quite different. The way they consume information, who they trust for information, pretty different. And so when a hardcore Dem communicates to a non-hardcore Dem, what we're finding more than ever is not only is it not working to pierce through and persuade, it's actually turning them off further. That's what they're literally telling us is I don't want to hang out with somebody that I see as a preachy, hardcore Democratic base who says if I could just spend 10 minutes showing you this data, you would totally be on the same page. It's the opposite of helpful. It's actually counterproductive. And what we're talking about here is early anecdotal evidence that it is having the desired early effect and getting folks that are not on the team opening towards further communication. We're going to play the long game, but I think for folks, this is a long game. This is not a 2026 election day. It's my 25th wedding anniversary, November 3rd. Perfect timing. Oops. Yeah. But this is a 2028 game. This is a 2030 game. This is a long-term effort. And it's just fulfilling to get early anecdotes that suggest that it's directionally correct.
I've been sharing a lot of this so I've shared a lot of the content that I've created for the platform from the Goffstown Dems public page. I've also used the same tools to create some of our own posts that are more Goffstown specific. And anecdotally, I see good performance as well. So likes and shares from people that weren't liking and sharing before. I think another interesting take is that I don't have a lot of opposition on the post. So it's a public page, right? Anybody can
Right.
come and argue with the post. And we do sometimes get an occasional, comment like that, but there's not a lot to argue with in these posts either because it's taking a lot of what it's doing is wrapping up something positive for everyone and language that resonates with everyone. So it's like, how do you argue against that? So I find that that's probably an interesting tidbit as well, that I'm not getting a lot of pushback from Republicans on the posts.
That's a very good point. One of the things I forget who I think one of you alluded to early was um, the comparative, which some might call opposition or comparative Accountability, I think, is the word that is often used. And we're going to be entering the 2026 legislative session. For folks that don't follow it, maybe super close. The legislators, the state house, state senate, they get elected to 2-year terms. In a lot of ways, most of the media stuff typically occurs in the first year of their 2 years in office because that's when the budget is done. And so much of the highly consequential, the spending, the allocation of funds is occurring largely in the first year. But the second year has become a pretty meaty year for legislation as well. And there's some potentially pretty controversial stuff that's going to get debated in the House and Senate in 26, the second year of this term. So I think maybe one of the opportunity for this accountability, the opportunity to highlight positive votes, which will frankly probably be mainly from Democrats at this point, from our perspective, and also if there are Republicans that are doing the right thing, like we're not here to crap on Republicans that do the right thing. The problem seems to be in our polarized system that even the most moderate Republicans, the few that are still out there in the legislature, seem to be typically getting kind of bullied into voting party line on some of the most impactful legislation. So unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of purple going on here these days of people, really going vote by vote. Talk a little bit about how you look at this sort of accountability opportunity, especially as we enter an election year in November of 2026.
Did you want to start that, Shana, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
All right. So what we've done so far on the accountability posts is look at votes that happened over the past legislative session and start calling people out for things that were harmful to, well, as we believe, harmful to our communities. So we had one that was about removing the income cap on the EFAs. So what we did for that was we created a different graphic for every single town or precinct that calls out the Republican reps in their precinct that voted to remove the income cap. And we had some, values-based language that went with that. But the graphic actually had all the representatives and most of the senators' names on it, depending on space available on the graphic. That performed really well, in my opinion. I think that was one of the ones that we've seen the best performance on. People are angry about that. Most people agree that we shouldn't be doing this. And so it was a way to hold the reps accountable that voted to make this happen. Another one we did was for the Medicaid cuts, which was part of the budget. But so anybody that voted on the budget, we said, has voted for these Medicaid cuts and how they are harmful to our communities, not just the people that may lose Medicaid. So looking forward, we're prioritizing certain issues that we know the voters care about, right? So property taxes, healthcare, public education, housing are our primary topics we're focusing on. So as we go into the legislative session moving forward, we're going to be looking at votes that are happening around these things. House and Senate, and holding people accountable. So if there is a piece of legislation that has a roll call that we can actually see how everyone's voted. Now what we do is we tally all those votes in a big spreadsheet, and then we import that into the design tool and whatnot. So it pulls all of the representatives that have voted that way into a single graphic that each town can share to hold their reps accountable.
I think one of the challenges as we've been constructing this, at least on a personal level, is there are bills that are getting passed that I personally prioritize because of how I feel about the issues that matter most to me, lifelong Democratic activists.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to separate that at moments from, is this a bill? Or if it becomes signed into law, which a lot of bad stuff got signed into law last year. Is this something that I think is awful? And personally, I'm very upset. But that if we're trying to follow the data and kind of follow the discipline of winning more elections, which I do feel like Democrats, like breaking news, we got to win a lot more elections. We're not winning enough elections. If you don't win more elections, you don't get to make the rules. And trying to have the discipline to take what emotionally I want to just ram down the throat of every voter and be like, look, you should be as angry as me, recognizing that for better or worse, they're just not as angry about it as I am compared to the issues, Nicole, that you just said. A lot of them are kind of bread and butter. I mean, I find that to be the most difficult thing sometimes is to separate that out and I got to take some of the emotion out of that. I don't know if you feel that too as you see some of these votes.
Yeah, I mean, what got me involved in the first place was gun violence prevention and
Mm.
dealing with school shootings and gun safety and whatnot. And that's obviously not a popular issue to talk about. We get a lot of people, especially in New Hampshire, that are very Second Amendment and think we're going to try to take all their guns away if we just try to keep people safe, right? So, yes, it is hard for me not to look at those sorts of votes and say, oh, we should be making posts all about this all the time. But yeah, and I know a lot of people, myself included, care a lot about LGBTQ rights and making sure that we are protecting those communities as best we can. And yeah, I agree with all of that as well. So finding a balance while focusing on the issues that we know voters are bringing to the ballot box with them.
Hmm. And finding ways, you know, to reframe those issues so that we can get a piece of messaging out in a reframed way,
Yeah,
that may be able to be heard. Like
that's
we're working on that.
so for example with healthcare, we've toyed with how can we bring in, healthcare privacy, healthcare rights and privacy as a framework for why some of this anti-trans legislation is harmful, for
Mhm.
example. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, Shana. There's there's a chart in the events I do that I don't show as often as the data become a little dated as we go deep into the 2025, but that I found would be an incredible spark of conversation at an event.
Mhm.
And you guys have seen it. It's one that had like an X and a Y axis, and the further right you went, the more important the issue was to the American voter, and the further up you went, the more that Democrats were perceived as having the trust advantage. The more down you went, the more the Republicans had the trust advantage. And early in the year, the upper right corner of it would be stuff that matters a lot that people trust Democrats more. And it basically was some healthcare related stuff, and that was literally it. And then
Mhm.
you go to the bottom right corner, and it was just populated with all kinds of stuff that was generally related to the economy, crime and safety, immigration, and even elements of stuff that has been the Democratic advantage for most of my lifetime, like education, even civil rights. And then you go to the upper left corner, the stuff that people trust us Democrats on, but they just don't care a lot right now. And it was a lot of issues that at the events, when I would ask people to list out, hey, Democratic activists here on a Tuesday night in April to talk about politics, with no election for a long time, what matters the most to you? And they would say climate, abortion, LGBTQ, democracy, Trump's a jerk. And then I'd be like, uh-oh, look at this chart. And everything in the upper left corner was the stuff that they were listing, things that they trust us on, the people, but they just don't think are really high priority. At first, the anger in these crowds would be like, why don't people care more about them?
We saw
And
that.
I'm like, let's flip it around. They trust us on it. So the worst thing that we could do would be to abandon ownership, trust advantage and ownership on reproductive rights or climate and LGBTQ. The question is, how can we move people? How do we connect better with people so that they're telling us they already trust us more on the issue? They're not seeking for us to change our position on the issue. They like our position generally on the issue. They just right now it's not I can't pay my mortgage. And I don't think that makes them bad or weird. I think it's actually a pretty normal reaction to worry more about paying your mortgage at a given moment in your life than, whether the number of weeks that an abortion would be banned in your state. I get why people would land there at this moment in the country. But that provides us opportunity, I think, Shana, you just described, not to back away from the issues, but to figure out how to better connect on how do we communicate? How do we emotionally connect? It's a real opportunity that actually I get very excited about because I think it's sitting there and we haven't done a lot with it at a state or national level. So it's kind of sitting there if we're willing to innovate. And I like to think, bias alert, I like to think that's exactly the way we're attacking it right now, is we're trying to look at it differently than the ways I've seen it in the 20 years I've been in the game. This is where your background, Shana, in political psychology, it just seems like the moment matched it. And then Nicole, your professional skills and background. This is the serendipity of it.
Mhm.
It just felt like this connection of skill sets that are highly complementary with a little bit of overlap, but not too much.
Mhm.
That creates this real nice flow. Um, and and it starts next week. Actually, we got this thing that we call house calls. That will, I mean, it's going to evolve, but the that basically lets us to get into the deep dive at the precinct and house district level, taking this work uh, and empowering people at the local level at the next level of engagement. And I think next Thursday, the first one is in New Boston, which basically borders both of your towns.
It'll be a
That's a
nice easy
coincidence,
drive.
right? Easy drives. And it's where a lot of my high school friends live because Goffstown, I don't know if it still does, but New Boston was part of the high school district.
Yeah.
It
They
still is?
go
Okay.
to 7th and 8th grade and high school with Goffstown.
So when I started, old man in lawn, shaking fist at clouds alert. When I started, it was Goffstown Junior Senior High. It was all in the same building as what is the high school now, and Dunbarton was also in it. So there was a 3-town district, and
Yeah,
I
we
guess
lost that
Dunbarton's
one.
not there.
No, we lost that contract. They go to Bow now.
Oh, okay, they go to. So is it just the 2 towns now?
Yep. Hmm.
Okay, is Bedford? Does Bedford have any other towns in any part of its K through 12?
No.
But you guys used to do West, right? You used to be West High School.
Yep. We went through a whole period of trying to build a high school, and so now the high school here contains like the junior high and the high school, different sections. So it's all contained in Bedford now.
Are your
Um, Steve,
who's student population? I'm sorry.
I put a link to the
Oh
onboarding
yes.
Zoom, the November 2nd one. If folks want to sign up for that.
I was going to say, too, we do have a variety of topics and questions in the.
You know what? I
Yeah.
can't see them. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's pull through a few here. One of the first ones from Christina, can anyone explain what are free staters? I've heard on TikTok people are moving in trying to change things. I'm guessing MAGA, but not sure.
All right. One of you two want to take a crack at that?
You should take the crack at that.
uh, Free Staters, it is a project that was, I want to say early 2000s, created by a guy named Jason Sorens, who wrote a Free State Manifesto, which basically was to find a state that they could pick to move to and take over their government, and create a libertarian utopia. And so back then, and the ultimate goal was secession from the United States. So they picked New Hampshire. Lucky us because we have a coast that they could do trade out of. We have access to Canada, so we have a border with a different country, and we have a humongous legislature that they could take advantage of. And so they had a pledge. They needed 20,000 people to sign their pledge to come here. And the pledge included once they hit the 20,000, they would all move here within 5 years and they would all run for office under whatever political party was the most likely to win in the place they moved to. So that's what they've been doing. That's how they are, I don't know, what, 80% of the Republicans in the state house right now are free staters. It was 78% a couple of years ago, so I'm assuming it's more. I don't know the exact percentage. It's a lot. And they are basically extreme libertarians. And that's what we're watching play out.
And one thing, I'm sorry, Nicole.
I was just going to add, they start by running usually for a local office, like school board or budget committee or whatever it might be. Then they get some name recognition and move up to the state house. And if you want more information on this, is it granitestateMatters.org? I believe is the website. Granite State Matters is the organization.
Granite State, Granite State Progress has it. Granite State Matters. Gene Beach going around the state doing informational sessions. There was one last night with the Kent Street Coalition. I can find the link to that recording that you did and share it in here.
We're actually going to be hosting a session in Goffstown. I believe it's going to be 10 a.m. on November 1st with Karen Hill. She's our only Democratic executive counselor, and she's also going around educating about the Free State Project. So TBD on location, but follow us. You can sign up for our email list at goffstowndems.com if you want to get information on that.
And one last thing I would add about the whole Free State, there's sometimes I would argue a distinction without a lot of difference, that in the literal definition of Free Stater, if it was somebody who came from another state in order to move to New Hampshire, specifically for what Shana described, the sort of effort to colonize New Hampshire, which they also loved that it was a small state with this big legislature. I think Idaho was the other finalist back in the early 2000s. And they found this to be an easier one. And they were right, by the way. There's no question they made the correct strategic decision. It's a libertarian cultured state to begin with. So, it's not like you got a lot of Democrats running around saying, maybe adults should wear a seatbelt or a motorcycle helmet or should be required to get health insurance or so forth. I mean, we find things normal that in almost every other state, including some of the reddest, whether it's Bible Belt or kind of Mountain West libertarian type of conservatism, we have a unique brand in the country, and they were correct, I think, to find this as the opportunity. But there's a lot of legislators who have voting records that are, as a practical matter, identical to a literal free stater, like a majority leader of the New Hampshire House, Jason Osborne, is a literal free stater. He moved here in that effort from Defiance, Ohio. You can't make it up. But there are other folks, like there's a state rep from, I believe, the same district in that Auburn, Candia area, one of the redder districts in the state, James Blaine, who has lived in New Hampshire for a decade and is is not a free stater the way we define it, but his voting record and his positions, his social media comments are as free state in spirit as anybody. And the party has gone to a point now where this is what's going on, that has become the dogma of most legislators. So it's and I did some work at stevemarchand.com to kind of ask the question of what's the correlation between people's free state type voting record and the nature of the districts, the PVIs, the partisanness of the House district. And the reality is, if you put these candidates' voting records into districts that were remotely blue at all, they would not win. And we know that because they do not win. They are not representing Democratic-leaning districts. They have made their bones electorally almost exclusively by living in overwhelmingly deep red districts where as soon as you put the R next to your name, you're going to win the general election. Because that's just, it's 10 points more Republican than the state. That's just the way it goes. It has slowly crept into deep purple and purple districts. Yeah. But this remains something that started with a strategic decision to be in deep red places where get the Republican nomination and you cruise into office. And they've been slowly trying to inculcate it into purple. They've not yet busted into blue. That would be a real 3-alarm fire. But I think this is where, Democrats need to build the education on it and recognize that they are now making their way into purple districts. And that's a real problem politically.
Mm-hmm. I just put a link to that video if anybody wants that.
Oh, good.
Another question from Sarah. What do you think is the best time to host in-person events for people in their middle ages with busy families? And what do you think draws people in? Any practical ideas? Shana, it sounded like you had a lot of ideas.
We hold ice cream socials. We have pub nights. We have book clubs. We have food drives. Uh, we have social lunches that we offer once a month. Anybody that can show up. I think it's about building relationships and providing food.
Oh.
Like, people want food, especially if they're coming around dinner time and they're, coming from work. They're hungry. We have a great neighborhood captains team that goes out before our events and knocks on all the Dems doors in their neighborhood and invites them to our events. So that helps. We can tell when we have an event that is not has not been plastered by the neighborhood captains. We get a third of the people showing up. So definitely helps.
Sounds like you do things at a variety of times too. So if you're doing a lunch versus, an evening meeting versus an ice cream social on a
Yeah,
weekend. Yeah.
a lot. We do a lot of different things. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that the variety of platforms is another way. And again, this is playing the long game. So one of the piece of feedback I'm getting in my events, as we increase, the podcast format for as one of many ways to communicate, there is a subset of folks, and you can kind of imagine it's the parent who is in the car a lot. And maybe they're
Mhm.
commuting to work after dropping the kids off, the dad or the mom. And that's where they're a captive audience. And a variety of lengths of media to capture them, I think, is one of the silver BBs, right? Because there's no silver bullet, but it's a lot of silver BBs. With all the different committees, I feel like we are getting different best practices. That one of the goals, I think, in our own events is to communicate what we're learning from other places to each community or house district as we make the house call.
Mhm. I can't see the questions anymore. I don't know why.
All right. I still have them. Do
Mhm.
we want a few more? I know we're a little over, but
Yeah, I do a
Yeah.
few quick hits.
all right. Do you guys find that name recognition still has pretty strong impact? Like, for instance, the many people that voted for Kelly Ayotte because they believe she is closer to moderate. It seems like that's what happened. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, name ID is what these candidates, particularly for higher office, are spending so much money to attain. It's There's an old saying: the best thing is to be loved. The second best thing is to be hated. The worst thing is to be irrelevant. And and in politics, getting the name ID is the hardest thing, and it's the baseline, because from there you can do things with it. And I do think there's a little bit of a conflation that Chris Sununu and Kelly Ayotte won their 5 terms, Chris 4 times, Kelly 1 time, because of name ID. There's some of that. And it certainly gave them an advantage in their primaries and then in the general. But there's an element with Governor Ayotte. There's a lot of evidence that shows that a Republican woman gets a few extra points at the beginning, all other things being equal, because the lower engagement voter sees Republican women as likely more moderate than the Republican brand, and the flip is true as well. To be very straight up, a straight white guy who is a Democrat gets a handful of points extra because it is becoming increasingly exotic to be a straight white guy and be a Democrat by the numbers. And people assume if you're a straight white guy and a Democrat, you're probably more moderate than the party overall. Of course, these things may be or may not be true at all, but people perceive Kelly Ayotte, and I've seen this back when she ran for U.S. Senate in 2010. I worked with some folks that were doing polling on that Senate race when she was not an incumbent at that time. And we were worried that a tremendous number of pro-choice voters in New Hampshire were supporting Ayotte, even though she had a lot of public record that she was very poor on choice. Then we did polling where we took like a minute and gave all these quotes and votes and records of Kelly Ayotte being lousy on choice. And then at the end of it, we would ask the voter, now that you know this information, what do you think? And they'd be like, come on, she's pro-choice. And that's after you gave them the information, because that preconceived notion is really hard to break. And so Republican women and Democratic straight white men appear to get this extra advantage with swing voters, at least at the outset. That isn't so much a name ID thing. It's more of like a cultural signifier in the absence of actual information that if can be strategically critical in close races.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We've got from Walter. It seems that taking what you summarized, I think our messaging stuff, to the next level of operationalizing to specific voter targeting processes is what is needed. Is something like Haystack DNA offerings and analytics and voter outreach complementary or competitive? I don't know what Haystack DNA is.
I don't know, Shana, do you? I'll be honest, I've not
I
worked with Haystack.
I have not either. I looked it up when Walter mentioned it, and I think it's voter scoring. And if we were going to do scoring and specific targeting like that, I think something like this would be great. If we wanted to do paid digital, I don't think that's um in our plan right now due to funding. So if it were, absolutely, I would go for something that provides some voter scores and some targeting. And with the product that we've used to pull the insights, we can also get voter level insights on the values of each voter on the voter roll. So we could really do some great targeting if we were funded and able to run digital, but we're not there yet.
By the way, shameless plug at that moment. We have been raising money and seeking to build partnerships with entities, and obviously, but we are have been fueled by sweat and labor, but also individual donations. And we're very grateful for that. You can go to Move the Goalposts, that's plural, movethegoalpostsnh.com. You could make a contribution there. You can also, that's where we have our upcoming events as we've begun to populate some of these house calls that
Mhm.
again start next Thursday in New Boston. And then they're going into November. I'm getting requests for December and January. We'll be on the road and excited about it. I think it's going to make a real difference in kind of where Walter's going with this. We want to get granular. For most of the 20 plus years I've been in New Hampshire politics, I have heard that our large number of small, quirky house districts are a barrier to being able to innovate. It's just too hard to get scale. And I would argue that the Moneyball approach is the opposite. Each one of these 203 house districts that get us 400 seats have their own story to tell. Each matchup of the Republican and the Democrat, the economics, the culture, the school districts, the geography, the proximity to Massachusetts, on every level, there are opportunities to
Mhm.
find these points, these slices, 1, 3, 5, 7 extra points of performance, which if you follow this stuff in so many of these house races, that's the difference between winning and losing. That's the
Mhm.
difference between a Democratic majority and a Republican majority. That's not an exaggeration. So I don't know. This I think drives, we talk about this a lot in the work we do. We are able to find those slices, and your funding, your support actually helps us get to the place where we can slice those slices even thinner and to a broader number of districts. So move the goalposts nh.com is how you can put some gas in the tank. That
Mhm.
it may be literal at one point here to allow us to do this. So I know our time is short. Maybe one more question or comment that maybe you see.
Yeah, I think this one's a good one. We have from Provocative Progressive. What are your thoughts on plural messaging, low engagement versus diehard Dems? And then a quick follow up from Walter saying diehard Dems should be our lowest priority unless you need volunteers. And I think it's a great time to say that, yes, that is, we agree, Walter. So the way we are doing this right now is splitting up the messaging to basically two buckets of red, like red PVI towns and purple PVI towns. And then all of the Democratic towns, the blue towns, are getting purple messaging because we don't want to necessarily reach more Democrats that are already voting for us or with us. We want to be reaching the people beyond those base people of the Democratic Party. So we are putting out purple and red messaging depending on your PVI for your town at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes a lot of that. Amen. And these districts are changing too, right? So like the trend lines, it's not just the partisan voter index that's an important baseline measure, but have been working on an increasing number of even more underlying analytics that allow us to get to questions of nuanced differences. So, like if you have two House districts that are both R plus 2 points more Republican performing than the state overall, those are competitive districts. But I can give you examples in New Hampshire of districts that are R plus 2 because they are quickly falling away from the Democratic Party. They used to be Democrat, like Berlin, I mentioned earlier, that's falling away. And then you have Bedford and Goffstown are good examples where the numbers are similar to others, but they're coming towards Democrats. And that means there's more opportunity. There's more kinds of voters, more purpley kind of voters that we can talk to. Also, the difference between a suburban type district and kind of what we would call in the Midwest a Rust Belt, more of a typically old school Democratic town. By the way, the Laconias and the Berlins and the Claremonts, those are very different messages. So there are some communities that are blue, but because of the underlying metrics, we can treat as more of a legitimate purple because they're coming towards us and not in a good way. They're coming away from us. So I see that as not all blues, purples, and reds are created equal. They are always, every one of them is moving. No district is ever static, which is exciting. It's also exhausting.
Did we get all the questions?
Let's see. A lot of people joined. There's Shana's comment. Okay, yeah, here's one more if we want to take one. What can we actually do regarding the media environment? It is difficult to advocate to people when the information environment is so polluted that the Democratic Party is required institutionally to answer for things like internet memes.
It's a great question. That we informally call this. I'm not sure we have an actual name. Is "You are the media," and that is actually a paraphrase of a quote from, of all people, Elon Musk before he became Trumpified, where somebody asked him at one of these kind of Davos, kind of things, what exactly the question Nicole just read exactly, and he was like, "You guys don't get it. Democrats don't get it. You're no longer in a position to try to use the media filter to get your message through and hope they carry your water accurately. You are the media. Everybody, whether you are a college student who lives on TikTok or you are a retired French Canadian mom living in Pinardville, I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. Hey, mom. The Goffstown, who has like a Facebook page that she basically uses to consume information, to take it in. But she has a group of other women in their 70s, most of them French Canadian as well, that get together regularly and socialize. They're a really social group. They see my mom as an information purveyor in politics because she follows it closely and they know her kid does. And so they go to my mom and they ask her questions. My mom, to them, my mom is the media. And so all of us, every one of us has some group of people, whether it's 5 people or thousands or even millions of people that see our take on information on politics as credible. And the data show this is becoming more true over time. So the answer is you are the media. And again, that's exciting, but it means that we have work to do. And part of our mission is to make it easier for you to be the media. You are going to be the media, whether you want to be or not. So how can we equip you with knowledge from people you trust, using data, qualitative, 25 years of understanding politics in New Hampshire. How do we take all this together and give it to you in a form where you don't have to do a lot of thinking if you don't want to? You can simply be the media. That is ultimately at the center of our mission.
And so that's why you should sign up to use our new tool. How
Mhm.
can I do that, Shana? You want to put something for that in the comments?
Well, I put the onboarding
Oh,
Zoom.
okay. Perfect.
So join us on November 2nd. If you can't join us on November 2nd, shoot Steve an email and we'll get you onboarded in a different way. If you want to put a group together of folks in your town or multi-town meeting, we are doing house calls and we are happy to schedule a house call either on Zoom or we will drive out and do a meeting where we have a chat like this, but we go through um, the actual platform and we get people on their phones signing up, getting in the account and practicing it. Um, so that's what's next is getting people up. We have about 200 people using the platform now actively, and it's pretty great.
Okay, I keep saying one more, but this one I think is also very timely.
Oh,
So
good.
for Jason, he says, "What are your thoughts on the upcoming rule changes being voted on, rank and member expansion, and the resolution put out by the Young Dems?"
Uh,
I voted for the amendments on the rules committee, and so I am in support of them. Steve did a great analysis yesterday uh, of what came out through the Young Dems, so I'll let him speak to that. I as a town chair, co-chair, long time co-chair, believe that there is um, a a disconnect in the incredibly hard job of a town chair, the responsibility that a town chair has for organizing in their town, for helping candidates, for doing that hard work, and being part of the party, but not having a say in it. And so it's almost like that taxation without representation situation for town chairs. Because of that, I ran for the county committee and added a hat, added another hat, added another hat. And so giving these people a voice solidifies um, their responsibility to me, to the party, and to their role in winning elections. So I feel very strongly that they should be a part of it. Same same type of an argument with the state reps. They are out there representing voters. They have developed relationships with voters. They're responsible for legislating, and they absolutely should have a say in the way that the party supports races, in the way that the party creates a platform that we then have to go create policies that support the platform. I'll let Steve speak to the numbers that they put out. But yes, I support the amendments.
Nicole?
I also support the amendments largely for why Shana said. I think that it's, the people, the town committees and the state reps are really the people out, doing the grassroots work, and they're most connected to the local people in their communities. This is an opportunity for these people to better represent their own communities at the state level party. And I think I think it's a big disservice to our communities to say that we should not have that input in the state committee.
I would strongly urge folks that have a vote to vote for this full package of amendments. You do have to vote for them all up or down. The majority of the amendments that are on this ballot are actually relatively non-controversial and are not really part of any of the recent discussion this week. The two that are getting most of the attention are the addition of town chairs, the addition of state reps to the state committee, effective in the next cycle. I would note also that town chairs and state reps who, for whatever reason, say time commitments, travel, or whatever, that would choose to not participate as a state committee member would, under this amendment, have the opportunity to opt out, which is, I think, it's a good move. I did the math, and there are currently about 290 members on the state committee, give or take. It's a number that changes a little bit, and of course, not all are as active as some others. If you take all the state reps and the town chairs that would be added, and then you kind of add a few for vacant slots, so I don't want to be accused of sandbagging it, the number's comfortably under 600 by my calculation, and probably more like 560-ish, 555. Again, that's a number. It's like catching a butterfly. It's always going to be changing a little bit. So that part of it is, look, this is not very different at that level from other states in the Northeast, like Delaware and Rhode Island, that are also very small and by the way, don't have 400 state reps in their legislature. This is not like some cultural mind blower that, there are rooms available for the infrequent times that we ask them all to get together. Also, this just in, when they do ask them, they do not all show up. We know, like, this is, and anybody, this is obvious. This is factual. And some of the meetings are Zoom meetings or they're held outdoors. Like, this is a bizarre way to try to take a really good idea to increase democracy in the Democratic Party at a time when it feels like the other party too often is trying to lessen the Democratic element of the way we govern. We have an opportunity to make a statement that we believe that more government, more democracy, more engagement from the people making the difference. That's kind of the most important part. We got to get them more in the game. And I feel like if you look at the trend lines of our party and where it should be going, it's the devolution of power. This is what folks have been asking for in our party for many years now, and they feel disconnected. This is an opportunity to connect them and to say in a way that matters. You're involved at the town level. You're the one making the difference. You're the one running for state legislature. These folks are not getting paid, but they're doing the work. They're doing it without a lot of recognition, unpaid and unseen by many. There's an opportunity to engage them. I think this can unlock a level of engagement and activism that is very exciting. And I urge everybody to vote for these amendments.
And it will create many, many more opportunities for younger people to run for town fairs. We need that. We need that activity. These people that are running these committees are aging out, and you go to 10 committee meetings. 10 out of 10 of those committee meetings, somebody will say, we need to bring young people into these committees. So I would urge, if this does go through, I would urge young people to go to committee meetings and get involved and run for leadership positions on them. And then that will increase the representation on the state party more than it is now.
The more that the way people can get on the state committee is by being elected, especially in what I would describe as an easier to reach lower rung of the engagement ladder. Right. One way you could definitely get on the state committee is to be the Democratic nominee for governor. That is a very high rung on the ladder that whether you're 25, 45, or 65 is not a typical way that somebody gets on the state committee. Another way that a lot of people get on it is to be appointed. That is, if you are a 36-year-old parent who's interested in getting involved, I have to ask folks, what is an easier way to get on the state committee for the very people that we want to get more involved? Would it be the current system that generally you have to get appointed or you have to win some kind of an election that would be broader? Or would it be one where all you have to do is really care in a community that could be a couple thousand people and literally a couple dozen activists that are making up the committee? You get engaged. I know I've done hundreds of these. I've been in the room for literally hundreds of the town committee elections over the last 20 years. And it will typically be a group of 15 to like 40 people in these small, cute towns that care. And it's somebody who started as a volunteer, tiptoed into the room, nervous. They'd never been to such a thing before. Most of the folks there, maybe they didn't know at all. And then they get to know them. And the way I describe it is I have seen the magic in the course of one evening of the person tiptoeing and with trepidation. And they become a member of a family by the end of the evening. And they are a member of the local Democratic activist family. The magic starts happening. And then I'll come back a year later to speak to that group again. And that person that I saw tiptoeing in the room is now the vice chair of the committee. And then the chair of the committee maybe ages out, life changes, they want to do other things. And they go, who would be the next person? And it's that person who just a few years earlier was tiptoeing in, not sure how to engage. Anybody who tells me that the current system makes it easier for that 36-year-old person or that person of color or that blue collar worker that too often doesn't even know if they're a Democrat anymore, or that young parent that doesn't have a lot of time and is trying to figure out how to do something with the little time they have, or the person that doesn't have an advanced college degree. That's diversity. There's a lot of diversity, and our party needs more of all of that kind of diversity. And I need more chances for those kind of people, all of them, to be able to get in the game. These amendments make it easier for all the people that don't get in the game right now to get in the game. And I think it matters. So we should vote for it.
We did have one comment that some chairs are not being very neutral, and I just wanted to put it out there that this is not an issue we're required to be neutral on. We have a supermajority of the county chairs, in fact, that are advocating for these amendments to go through. It's not like a primary situation where we have to be neutral on the candidates. This is something we're allowed to advocate for our communities.
Good point. And I'll say this: the voting is open. There's about roughly 1,400 people-ish who are eligible to vote for this. So it's a pretty broad audience. It's a pretty grassroots audience in the communities. And the voting opened yesterday, I believe, online. And
Wednesday.
Wednesday, rather, and we'll go till convention day. It's a 10-day window. I love it. If somebody would like to have a conversation about this, I'm glad to see if we can match it up to do we'll do a Substack live sometime next week. We do a podcast. I mean, I'm putting my position on the table. I think I think there are good people on both sides of this. We are a family, and families talk it out. So if you'd like to do that, you can go to stevemarchand.com. That's my Substack. You can go to movethegoalpostnh.com. You can send an email through that and learn a lot more about the program that the three of us have been working on, our upcoming events. You can also contribute, like I said earlier, shameless plug, all of these things. We are now at 12:30, so we've officially gone way over the original, but we had lots of questions, so whatever. I'm going to take a nap because I went to bed at 3:00 last night. At some point, I got to be rested for the Chiefs game Sunday night, even though the Patriots may have a better record than them this year, which is really the most important statement of this entire 90 minutes. My wife,
thank you, everybody.
Just said it, by the way.
Yes, thank you for hanging out for an hour and a half.
This has been great. I hope to see you at the onboarding.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to need onboarding.
Yeah, you need to go take a nap.
That's it. Okay. This will be on, we'll turn this into a podcast. It'll be on the YouTube channel. You can check that out, my YouTube channel. It'll be available on Apple and on Spotify, probably by tomorrow in audio form. You've got all the other ways to contact us. We'd love to do events with you online or in your community. The onboarding is Sunday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. The registration is up for that. And last thing, November 5th, Wednesday, November 5th at 7 p.m., we will be rolling out some of our initial targets for the State House for 2026. We had a model the last 3 cycles has proven very accurate. It continues to be refined. What are the bullseyes? What are the districts that we should be thinking about in the all important quest to win back Democratic control of the New Hampshire House? That path is there. It is not easy, but it is definitely doable if we do the work, use the data, communicate to the people that need to hear our message in the ways they like to get it. That's what we're working on. We're going to do that. That's November 5th. You can get that at movethegoalpostnh.com. Register for that as well. I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Go, Pat. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Shana. Thank you all for viewing, and we will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.